That afternoon, a sudden summer storm broke over New York City, washing away the oppressive heat of late May. I sat in my office, quietly watching the streaks of water run down the window pane, feeling a strange sense of peace. Work at the company had stabilized, my little daughter was at home with the nanny, and my husband, Kevin, had said he would be home early tonight to celebrate the 8th anniversary of the day we officially started dating. Everything seemed almost too perfect, a picture of happiness that I had spent my entire youth painting. I smiled, reaching for the phone on my desk to send him a sweet message. Just then, the screen lit up. Ping. A new iMessage. The sender was Jessica, my closest, most trusted friend, the one I still lovingly had saved in my contacts as Jessie my ride or die, complete with a bright red heart emoji. She was probably just sending me pictures of a shopping spree or complaining about work again, I thought to myself as I lazily opened the message. But no, it wasn't a picture, nor was it a line of complaint. It was a video, sent without a single word of introduction, not even an emoji, just a solitary video file. I frowned slightly, a little curious. It must be some funny clip she wanted to share. I pressed play, still holding a smile on my lips. But then, my smile froze solid, shattering into 1,000 invisible pieces as the first images appeared. The sound of the rain outside, the ticking of the wall clock, everything seemed to fade away. All I could hear was the frantic pounding in my own chest, growing louder and more urgent with each beat, like a war drum before an execution. A chill shot through my entire body. It was a cold that crept from my fingertips, ran up my spine, and encased my heart in ice. The video was only a mere 27 seconds long, but to me, it felt like an entire century of humiliation and pain. It wasn't a funny clip. It was an intimate video and disgusting. The woman in the video, with her long, loose curls, an alluring smile, and inviting eyes, was none other than Jessica, my best friend. But the thing that made me freeze, the thing that caused my entire world to collapse, was the man whose back was to the camera. I couldn't see his face, but I recognized that back, the strong, sturdy back I held onto every night. And on his left shoulder blade was a small tattoo of an anchor, a tattoo that I myself had chosen for him during one of our beach vacations. It was Kevin, my husband. My entire body went numb. The phone almost slipped from my trembling hand. I didn't cry, nor did I scream. Strangely, I was terrifyingly calm. My mind went blank, all emotions seemingly drained away, leaving only a cold, hollow emptiness. I stared at the screen, at the face of my best friend, at the back of my husband. Where were they? Ah, I recognized it. The moss-green curtains, the painting of a lighthouse on the wall. It was the bedroom of the resort in the Hamptons, where the three of us had a wonderful summer vacation last year. The memory came flooding back, sharp as a knife's edge. I remembered that day, Jessica had insisted on renting a villa with 2 separate bedrooms, saying she didn't want to intrude on our privacy as a married couple. At the time, I was touched by her thoughtfulness. It turned out that thoughtfulness was just a cover for a filthy conspiracy happening right behind my back. Ping, ping, ping. My phone lit up again with new messages, still from Jessica. This time, it wasn't a video but a stream of panicked text. "Oh my God, Emily, I sent that to the wrong person. I'm so dead." "Emily, delete it. Delete it right now. Don't watch it. I meant to send that to my coworker. I sent it to you by mistake. Delete it, Emily. I'm begging you." So, it was a mistake. A foolish mistake had exposed a horrifying truth. She hadn't sent it to me on purpose. She had intended to send it to someone else, to show off her conquest. This truth made me feel even more disgusted. I looked at her feigned, pleading messages and didn't reply. My finger glided over the screen. Instead of hitting delete, I calmly pressed the save button. The 27-second video was now safely stored in my camera roll, secure and certain. I turned off the phone screen and set it down. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the traffic still rushing through the rain. My heart was as still as a lake after a storm. The pain was still there, a dull, throbbing ache, but on top of it, something else was beginning to form. A coldness, an iron-willed determination. 8 years of love, 5 years of marriage, 15 years of friendship, and all I got in return was a 27-second video. They had taken me for a fool, performing a perfect play right in front of me. Well then, I couldn't disappoint them. This play, I couldn't let it end so quickly. A cold smile formed on my lips. Jessica, you sent it to the wrong person. You shouldn't have sent me this video. Because now, it's no longer your and my husband's secret. It has become my weapon. And I promise, I will use it well. The tragic play you've both written, I will be the one to write its final act. Night fell, blanketing the city in darkness. I didn't turn on any lights, letting the room sink into the shadows, just like my mood. The bitter truth was like a slow-acting poison. After seeping into my system, it didn't kill me instantly, but began to destroy me cell by cell, neuron by neuron, forcing me to look at my entire past through a completely different lens. A lens that was stark, naked, and utterly repulsive. I used to see my life through rose-colored glasses, where everything was sparkling and perfect. Now, those glasses were shattered, and all I could see were the cracks, the gaping holes of deceit that I had been blind to before. I rummaged through my memory, piecing together every event, every word, every tiny action. And then, the scattered pieces began to connect, forming a perfect, chilling picture of betrayal. I remembered about a year ago, on my birthday, Kevin had given me an incredibly expensive diamond necklace. He said it was the first fruit of a major successful project. I was so happy I cried in his arms. But just a few days later, I happened to see the receipt for the necklace in his wallet. The payer wasn't him, but the company. And the amount was listed under client entertainment expenses. At the time, I just simply thought he wanted to use company money to buy me a gift, perhaps for tax reasons. I even blamed myself for being too suspicious, for not trusting my husband. I kept quiet, never asking him a single question, telling myself I should be a supportive wife and not meddle too much in his work. Looking back now, I see how foolish I was. It wasn't a client entertainment expense. It was a way for him to embezzle company money legally. He had used the company's money, the blood, sweat, and tears of my father and the employees, to buy me gifts to win my favor, to cover up his dirty schemes. Then I thought of Jessica. About 6 months ago, she told me she wanted to buy a condo on an installment plan to have a stable place to live. She lamented that her secretary's salary wasn't enough, wondering when she would ever achieve her dream. With the heart of a best friend, I didn't hesitate to talk to Kevin, suggesting he give Jessica a raise and a large advance. Kevin seemed hesitant at first, but after my pleading, he agreed. Jessica thanked me profusely, saying I was her savior. And then, just a month later, she moved into a luxury condo in a trendy part of Brooklyn, a place that a secretary's salary, even doubled, could never afford. When I asked, Jessica just smiled and said she was lucky to get a special preferential loan from the bank. I believed her without a shred of doubt. I was even happy for my friend, happy that she finally had a better life. But now, a huge question loomed in my mind. Was that special preferential loan real? Or was it also Kevin's money funneled from my family's company in some way to provide for his mistress? This suspicion was like a venomous snake, slithering into my mind, gnawing at and poisoning every thought. Kevin's sudden business trips also became more frequent. He often said he had to meet partners in other states, sometimes being away for 2 or 3 days. Each time, he would seem very tired, complaining about the hard work. I had always trusted him, worried about his health, preparing medicine and clothes for him. I never checked up on him, never called to bother him. But there was one time I remembered very clearly, that fateful trip to the Hamptons where the video was filmed. He said he was going alone to survey a new project. But when he came back, as I was doing the laundry, I found a tube of burgundy red lipstick in his shirt pocket, a shade I never wore, but it was Jessica's favorite. When I asked, he was startled, then quickly explained that a female colleague who went with him had dropped it. He picked it up and accidentally put it in his pocket. He even got annoyed, saying I was being ridiculously jealous and didn't trust him. Once again, I chose silence. I convinced myself it was just a coincidence, that I shouldn't disrupt our family's happiness over a tube of lipstick. I had thrown away a crucial piece of evidence with my own hands, blinded myself to the truth. The more I thought, the colder my spine felt. It turned out they hadn't just started. They had been deceiving me, betraying me systematically, with a plan, for a long time. Those invisible cracks had been there all along, but I either didn't see them or intentionally chose not to. I had been too immersed in the false happiness they painted for me, so much so that I lost even the most basic ability to judge. My own naivety was the fertile ground for their lies to sprout and flourish. I stood up and walked to the wooden cabinet in the room. I opened a drawer and took out an old, brown, leather-bound ledger. This was the book where I secretly kept track of all the company's major expenditures and important projects, a habit I developed when I was still working alongside my father. I flipped through the pages, cross-referencing the dates of Kevin's business trips, the unusual entertainment expenses, Jessica's salary advances. Everything gradually became terrifyingly clear. The numbers didn't lie, and they were telling me a horrifying story of embezzlement and fraud. The amount of missing money was not small. It was enough to buy several luxury condos, enough for Jessica to live a lavish lifestyle without having to work. The anger in me was no longer a flame. It had turned into a molten lava flow, ready to incinerate everything. I had given them opportunities, careers, the life they dreamed of, and they repaid me by stabbing me in the back, taking my family's money to nurture their sinful affair. I slammed the ledger shut. The sharp sound echoed in the quiet night. Enough. I would not sit here and wallow in pain and regret. I had enough evidence, enough rage, and enough determination. In this game, I would no longer be the victim. I would become the hunter. I would turn over every card, expose every layer of their masks. But first, I had to learn how to act, to put on a mask even more perfect than theirs. This play, I would be the director, and I would ensure it had a truly fitting end. I wondered if tomorrow, when I saw them again, I would be calm enough to smile and pretend nothing had happened. The next morning, I woke up even before the alarm went off. I had tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep, but my mind was strangely clear. I stood in front of the mirror, looking at my reflection, a woman with dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but whose gaze was sharp and frighteningly resolute. I no longer recognized the naive, cheerful girl of yesterday. She had died last night, along with her trust and her love. Today would be the first day I put on the mask, the first day I began my own play. I chose a bright floral dress and applied light makeup, trying to hide my exhaustion. I wanted to look just like I always did, a happy wife, without a single ripple in her soul. When I went downstairs, Kevin was already at the dining table, holding a newspaper, his expression as calm as if nothing had happened last night. He hadn't called or messaged me about the video yet. Perhaps he still didn't know, or perhaps Jessica was still too panicked to inform him. All the better. That would make my play even smoother. "Good morning, honey," I said, trying to make my voice as sweet and natural as possible. I walked over and placed a light kiss on his cheek, a kiss that I found repulsive down to my bones. Kevin seemed a little surprised by my action, but then he smiled, that fake smile I was all too familiar with. "Good morning, babe. You're up early today. I wanted to make breakfast for you myself. You got home late from that client dinner last night. You must be tired," I said while setting the breakfast on the table. It was all his favorites, toast with garlic butter and a sunny-side-up egg with a runny yolk. Every action of mine was gentle, thoughtful, flawless. He looked at me, his eyes holding a hint of suspicion, but it was quickly dispelled by my happy expression. We ate breakfast together in a suffocating silence. I tried to start a conversation, asking him about work, about his upcoming plans. He answered perfunctorily, his eyes never leaving the newspaper. I knew his mind was elsewhere, probably with that other woman, worrying about her, trying to figure out how to clean up the mess she had made. The thought sent a wave of jealousy and hatred rising within me, but I quickly suppressed it. I couldn't let my emotions show. I had to act, to play my part perfectly. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jessica. My heart skipped a beat. The real show was about to begin. I glanced at Kevin and saw him flinch slightly, quickly looking at me. I calmly answered the call, put it on speaker, my voice still cheerful as if nothing was wrong. "Hello, Jessie," Why are you calling me so early, you sleepyhead? On the other end, Jessica's voice was trembling, on the verge of tears. Emily, Emily, where are you? I'm at home, having breakfast with my loving husband. What's wrong? You sound so panicked. Did your boss yell at you? I deliberately emphasized the words, loving husband, my eyes still fixed on Kevin. I saw his face pale slightly. No, it's nothing. I just wanted to ask if you're free today. Maybe we could get some coffee. Her voice was full of urgency. She wanted to see me, to probe whether I knew anything, to find a way to cover up her sin. Of course I'm free. I'll drop my daughter off at school, and we can meet at our usual spot. What's wrong with you? You sound so weak. Are you sick? I continued to play the part of a concerned best friend. No, I'm fine. Okay, see you later then. With that, she hung up hastily, as if afraid that saying another word would reveal the truth. I put the phone down and let out a dramatic sigh. I don't know what's up with this girl again. Probably heartbroken or something. Kevin finally spoke, his voice a little unnatural. It's probably just work stuff. She's been under a lot of pressure lately. Oh, really? I turned to look at him, my eyes wide with innocence. Does her work have anything to do with you? You seem to know a lot about it. Or are you the one giving her a hard time? My question made him visibly flustered. Of course not. I just heard people in the office talking. He quickly stood up. Anyway, I have to get to work. I'm going to be late for a meeting. He practically fled from the dining table, not daring to look me in the eye. Watching his retreating back, I smirked. My mask was working. The two of them, so clever, so cunning, were now being disoriented and terrified by my very calmness. They didn't know what I was thinking. They didn't know what I knew, and that very ignorance would be a slow-acting poison, eating away at their minds, making them lose their appetite and sleep. I arrived at our usual coffee shop, chose a secluded corner, and waited. 15 minutes later, Jessica arrived. She looked haggard and pathetic, her eyes puffy and swollen, her usually beautiful face now pale and lifeless. She was wearing a loose, baggy dress, trying to hide her exhaustion. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, threw her arms around me, and burst into tears. Emily, I'm so sorry. I gently patted her back, my voice still full of concern. What's wrong? What happened? Tell me slowly. Did someone bully you? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No one. I just feel like I've wronged you. She began her performance. She said she had been feeling pressured lately, feeling unworthy of my friendship. She said I was too good to her, while she was having selfish thoughts. She cried and lamented, but never once mentioned the video or Kevin. She was trying to use her tears, to use our friendship, to soften me up, to make me willingly overlook everything. What a talented actress. I played along. I held her and comforted her. What silly things are you saying? You're my best friend. No matter what happens, I'll never abandon you. My words made her cry even louder. But I knew those weren't tears of remorse, but tears of fear. She was afraid of losing everything, her job, the man she was having an affair with, and the financial support from my family. We sat there, two best friends, hugging and crying pathetically. Anyone watching would surely be moved by our friendship. They had no idea that behind that embrace were two masks, two hearts full of calculation and lies. This play was just the prelude. I knew that to bring them down, I needed to be more patient, more ruthless. I would slowly peel off their masks, layer by layer, until their ugly true faces were exposed to the light. And I wondered how long they could keep up the act, when my silence was the most terrifying poison of all. The following days passed in a strange, suffocating atmosphere. I continued to play the role of the good wife, the good friend. Every morning, I still prepared breakfast for Kevin, still kissed him before he left for work. Every afternoon, I still called Jessica to check in, still listened to her complain about the invisible pressures in her life. On the surface, everything was as peaceful as if that fateful notification had never sounded. But beneath the facade of peace, a silent, relentless war was being waged. Both Kevin and Jessica were living in fear and anxiety. They couldn't understand why I was so calm. My silence was like a ticking time bomb. They didn't know when it would detonate, or what its destructive power would be. They began to test the waters. Kevin suddenly became unusually attentive to me. He bought flowers, brought home gifts, and said sweet things he hadn't said in a very long time. He wanted to use this fake romance to atone for his guilt, to appease me, hoping I would forget everything. Jessica, on the other hand, tried every way to avoid me. She no longer dared to look me in the eye. Our coffee dates became less frequent. She was scared to face the truth, scared to face me. I calmly enjoyed their clumsy performance, not a single ripple in my heart. I knew they were torturing themselves, and that was the first punishment I had for them. I wasn't in a hurry. I waited patiently, waiting for an opportunity, for a stage big enough for me to bring down the curtain on this play in the most spectacular way possible. And then, that opportunity arrived, more perfectly than I could have imagined. One weekend evening, Jessica suddenly called me, her voice trembling but full of excitement. "Emily, where are you? I have something really important to tell you. Come over to my place right now." Her tone was completely different from the past few days. The fear was gone, replaced by an unconcealable excitement. I was a little curious, wondering what new trick this person was trying to pull. I went to her luxury apartment, the one probably bought with my family's money. The moment she saw me, Jessica rushed out and hugged me, her face radiant, a stark contrast to her haggard look from before. "Emily, I'm getting married," she exclaimed. I was stunned, not because I was surprised, but because the drama of the story had exceeded my wildest imagination. Married? To whom? Was she planning to go public with Kevin? "Who is it? Why so sudden?" I asked, trying to sound joyful. Jessica pulled me inside, chattering excitedly as we walked. "His name is Marcus Vance, the only son of the chairman of Vance Properties. We met at a company party. He's been pursuing me for months. He just proposed to me yesterday." "Oh, Emily, I can't believe it. He's handsome, rich, and truly loves me. The wedding will be at the end of next month, a wedding of the century at the most luxurious hotel in the city." I sat and listened, feeling nothing but infinite contempt in my heart. Another play. A play to cover up, to prove that she was innocent, that she had nothing to do with her best friend's husband. She wanted to use a lavish wedding to wash away her sins and start a new life. And perhaps she also wanted to use it to spite me, to show me that even without Kevin, she could find a partner 1,000 times better. What a brilliant move. But she had miscalculated one thing. She didn't know that the very wedding of the century she was so proud of would become the stage for my revenge. "Oh my God! Really? Congratulations!" I exclaimed, hugging her tightly, perfectly playing the part of a friend bursting with happiness. "We have to celebrate big time. You're so lucky." My praise made Jessica even more smug. She began to brag about the wealth of her future in-laws, about the diamond ring as big as a corn kernel, about her plans for a honeymoon in Europe. She talked on, completely oblivious to the cold gaze I was giving her. And then she said the words I had been waiting for. "Emily," she said, taking my hand, her eyes sparkling, "you have to be my maid of honor. You're my best friend. On the most important day of my life, I can't be without you." I looked deep into her eyes filled with deceit and calculation. I smiled, a bright, genuine-looking smile. "Of course, you devil. How could I possibly miss your big day?" The words were spoken, the trap was set. Maid of honor, a role that couldn't be more perfect. I would stand right beside her, witness her happiest moment, and then, with my own hands, push her into the abyss of humiliation. That night, I went home in an unusually cheerful mood. I told Kevin the news about Jessica getting married. When he heard it, his face changed color. He tried to hide his surprise and perhaps a bit of disappointment, but it didn't escape my notice. "Oh, really? Congratulations to her," he said, his voice dry. "Aren't you surprised?" I asked, my eyes boring into him. "She never told you about this guy." I'm just her boss. How would I know about her private life?" he said evasively. "Is that so? I thought you two were very close." My voice was full of hidden meaning. "You see, My best friend has finally found happiness. I'm so happy for her. This wedding must be spectacular. I'll help her with everything," I said, already planning in my head. I would help her choose the most gorgeous wedding dress, the most luxurious venue, the most beautiful flowers. I would turn her wedding into a dream, a beautiful dream, before turning it into a nightmare that would never end. A phone call with Kevin later confirmed my suspicions. He called Jessica, his voice filled with anger. "What the hell are you doing? What wedding? Why don't I know anything about this?" "It's real. I'm getting married. Aren't you happy for me?" Jessica's voice was slightly defiant. "Are you crazy? What about me? Are you just gonna dump me like this? What about you? What can you give me? A title? A future? You don't even have the guts to leave your wife, so what right do you have to keep me?" Their argument grew more intense. It turned out their secret affair wasn't as beautiful as I had imagined. It was also full of calculation and selfishness. Jessica had decided to dump Kevin for a better prospect. This fact made me despise them even more. They were willing to trample on everything, including their own love, just to achieve their goals. I stopped the recording. Another piece of evidence. I sat in the dark, smiling to myself. Everything was proceeding more smoothly than I could have hoped. The two traitors were now turning on each other, and I, in the role of a good friend and a gentle wife, would sit back, enjoy the show, and wait for the day the grand stage was set. I wonder what Kevin's face will look like when he has to attend his lover's wedding as the husband of the maid of honor. It will surely be interesting. The month of wedding preparations passed in a state of perfect hypocrisy. I threw myself into helping Jessica with an enthusiasm that sometimes even surprised myself. I went with her to try on wedding dresses, choose flowers, and order invitations. I gave the most sincere advice, chose the best things, as if it were my own sister's wedding. Jessica, after her initial panic over the video, was now completely convinced that I knew nothing. She returned to her role as the best friend, chattering by my side, sharing all her joys and worries. She had no idea that every smile, every hug from me concealed disgust and a curse. In everyone's eyes, I was a wonderful friend, a model of forgiveness. As the husband of the maid of honor, Kevin also had to attend the events. He couldn't refuse, as it would make me suspicious. I could imagine his inner turmoil and awkwardness. That was exactly what I wanted. I wanted him to taste the feeling of helplessness, to witness the woman he desired marry another man, unable to do anything about it. But personal revenge didn't make me forget my larger goal. I knew their betrayal wasn't just emotional. My leather-bound ledger had pointed out suspicious financial losses in the company. It was time to find the truth. I couldn't do this alone. I needed a professional, someone I could trust completely, and most importantly, someone discreet. I immediately thought of Henderson, the head of security for my family's corporate group, a man who had been with my father since the beginning. He was a sharp and loyal former police detective. I met him at a small, out-of-the-way coffee shop. I didn't tell him the whole story of personal betrayal. I only said that as the future successor of the family business, I was concerned about the financial situation of the subsidiary company that Kevin was managing. I said I suspected embezzlement but had no concrete proof, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it without certainty, fearing it would affect the corporation's reputation and my family's happiness. My explanation was reasonable and played on Henderson's loyalty to my family. He agreed immediately, promising to investigate quietly and report directly to me alone. In the following days, while I was outwardly busy with wedding dresses and fresh flowers, a separate investigation was being conducted in the shadows. Henderson, with his professional experience, quickly found the loopholes. He didn't start with the accounting books, which Kevin and Jessica had surely doctored meticulously. He started with the weakest links, the suppliers and partner companies. He discovered that an interior design and materials supply company called K&J Interiors, a sickeningly ironic name, was frequently winning contracts for our company's projects at prices significantly higher than the market, our rate. What was noteworthy was that K&J Interiors had only been established a little over a year ago, with no reputation or experience, yet was always favored in a baffling way. Henderson had his people dig deeper into this company, and the truth was exposed. The director of K&J Interiors was none other than Jessica's cousin, a man who was previously just a small-time contractor with no qualifications, now suddenly the director of a high-end interior supply company. Their scheme was incredibly sophisticated. Kevin, as the director, would approve projects and give preferential treatment to K&J Interiors. Jessica, as his secretary, would legitimize all the paperwork. K&J Interiors would supply products at exorbitant prices, but the quality was terrible. The difference, of course, was split among the three of them. They had created a systematic pipeline to siphon money from the company. It wasn't just a few thousand or a few $100,000. The initial estimate Henderson gave me was in the millions. Millions of dollars of my family's sweat and effort had been turned into luxury condos, fancy cars, expensive designer goods, and even a wedding of the century. Holding the detailed report Henderson sent me, my hands trembled with rage. This betrayal was even more cruel than I had imagined. They didn't just deceive me emotionally. They were deliberately destroying the business my father had spent his entire life building. They were a nest of vipers, parasites disguised as loved ones. Henderson also included a few photos. They were pictures of Kevin, Jessica, and her cousin having a cheerful meal at a fancy restaurant. They looked like perfect partners, co-conspirators, celebrating a victory. The smiles on their faces were now more disgusting to me than the smiles in that 27-second video. I saved all the documents and photos into a carefully encrypted folder. This would be my final trump card, the fatal blow I would deliver at the very end. The hatred in me had reached its peak. Any last shred of hesitation or pity, if there ever was any, had completely vanished. Now, I had only one goal. They must pay. They must lose everything. They must be pushed into the abyss they had dug for themselves. I looked at Jessica's pink wedding invitation on my desk, an elaborately designed and expensive card. I smiled, a cold smile. This wedding wouldn't just be the wedding of the century. It would be the trial of the century. And I would be the judge delivering the verdict on all of their fates. But before that trial began, I needed to prepare my special gift more carefully. A gift the bride would never, ever forget. Night fell, returning a sense of quiet to the city after a long, noisy day. But in my study, the night was just beginning. I locked the door, drew the curtains, creating a completely private space, a sanctuary where I could take off my mask and face the demon in my heart. It was time to choose my weapons. I opened my laptop, plugged in my headphones, and replayed the fateful 27-second video. This time, I didn't watch it with the heart of a betrayed wife, but with the eyes of a director, an editor searching for the most damning footage. I watched it over and over again, countless times. Every frame, every gesture, every look in their eyes was meticulously analyzed. I ignored the disgusting sounds, ignored the pain tearing at my chest. I focused only on the images, on the details that could fully capture their shamelessness and filth. I didn't need a long video. A video could be easily dismissed, easily claimed to be fabricated. I needed something static, but with more destructive power than a bomb. I needed pictures. I began the work of a butcher, cold and precise. I paused the video at the most incriminating moments and used specialized software to capture high-resolution screenshots. The first picture, I chose a close-up of Jessica's face. The beautiful, delicate face that I once loved now appeared with a knowing smile, her eyes full of provocation and desire. That smile, in a different context, might have been seductive. But knowing the man she was looking at was her best friend's husband, it was nothing but pure, unadulterated shamelessness. This picture would be the opening act, a direct slap to the phony face of the best friend she had worked so hard to build. The second picture, I chose a slightly wider shot, capturing Kevin's bare back. The focal point of the picture was the anchor tattoo on his shoulder blade. That tattoo, not just me, but all of our mutual friends knew its meaning. It was the symbol of our love, of our promise to weather any storm together. Now, that sacred symbol appeared in a filthy scene, next to another woman. This picture would be a knife straight to the heart of their lies, exposing the facade of the perfect husband he had tried to portray. And the final picture, the cruelest one. I chose the moment they were embracing. Although Kevin's back was to the camera, Jessica's arms were wrapped tightly around him. On her ring finger, the friendship ring I had given her for her birthday last year was sparkling. A ring engraved with the letters, "Best friends forever, best friends forever." The irony of this detail was sharper than any curse. It was proof of how she had trampled on our friendship. 3 pictures, 3 fatal blows, each aimed at a different weak point. Her fake persona, our symbol of love, and her vow of friendship. They would be the 3 main exhibits in the special exhibition I was preparing for the bride and groom. After obtaining the high-quality image files, I started looking for a place to turn them into true works of art. I couldn't go to a normal print shop. I needed a professional, discreet place that could meet my special requirements. I asked Tom, my trusted assistant, for help. Tom, with his resourcefulness, quickly found a high-end art printing studio that catered to photographers and gallery artists. I contacted them and requested a private meeting with the manager. I went to the studio one afternoon. The manager was a middle-aged man with a worldly and discreet demeanor. I presented my request bluntly. I want to print these 3 images on the highest quality canvas, in a large format, 4 by 6 feet. I want them to be sharp, vibrant, like real oil paintings. And most importantly, all information about this order must be kept absolutely confidential. I am willing to pay 3, even 4 times the normal price. The manager looked at me, then glanced at the 3 images on my laptop screen. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a professional expression. He didn't ask a single question about the content of the pictures. "Ma'am, we understand your request. Our studio always prioritizes client confidentiality. You can rest assured," he said, his voice firm. The deal was made. The 3 large format canvases would be completed and delivered to a secret address I provided one day before the wedding. I paid a large deposit and left, feeling a strange sense of relief. The weapons were forged, sharp and ready. In the following days, I continued my performance, going with Jessica to choose wedding photo frames, listening to her chatter about where she would hang the happy pictures of her and the groom in their honeymoon suite. Each time, I just smiled and nodded, while in my head, I imagined how she would freeze in shock when she saw the works of art I had so painstakingly prepared. I no longer felt guilt or hesitation. They had sown the wind, and they would reap the whirlwind. They had turned my life into a play, so I would give them an unforgettable finale. The wedding of the century was fast approaching. The stage was set, the audience was ready, and those pictures, they weren't just inanimate canvases. They were bombs, silently counting down, waiting for the moment to explode and incinerate all the lies and sins. I wondered if the explosion would be loud enough to awaken their slumbering consciences. Time flew by, and the whirlwind of wedding preparations grew more frantic, and I, in my role as the devoted maid of honor, was swept up in it. I seemed to forget all my work at the company, dedicating all my time and energy to helping Jessica. My enthusiasm moved everyone, from Jessica and her family to the groom's family. They looked at me with admiration, marveling at such a beautiful and rare friendship. They had no idea that my devotion stemmed not from love, but from a hatred so refined it had become as cold and sharp as a blade of ice. I went with Jessica to the most prestigious bridal boutiques. She tried on one gown after another, lost in layers of white tulle, asking me again and again, "Emily, what do you think of this one? Does it make me look fat? Does that one show too much shoulder?" I sat there patiently for hours, giving the most sincere feedback until she chose a stunning mermaid gown that accentuated every curve. "Oh my God, Jessie, you look gorgeous. The groom is going to pass out when he sees you," I said with a tone of pure admiration. Jessica twirled happily in front of the mirror, her smile radiant. She didn't know I chose the most beautiful dress for her not so she could shine, but to make the contrast between her angelic appearance and her demonic actions even starker, making her eventual fall from grace all the more pathetic. We went together to book the reception at a 5-star hotel. With my event planning experience, I helped her negotiate with the manager, select a perfect menu, and arrange a lavish and romantic wedding space. I was meticulous about every detail, from the color of the tablecloths and the type of flowers on the tables to the lighting on the stage. I wanted to turn this wedding into an unforgettable event, a memory that all the guests would talk about for a long time but talk about with horror and disgust, not admiration. My dedication made Jessica incredibly grateful. She trusted me completely, giving me almost all the decision-making power. "Emily, I'm so lucky to have you. I don't know what I'd do without you," she would often say, squeezing my hand, her eyes glistening with gratitude. Each time, I would just smile and reply, "That's what friends are for. Don't be a stranger. Your happiness is my happiness." I lied without the slightest hesitation. My heart had turned to stone, my emotions frozen. I was just a machine, operating perfectly according to a pre-programmed plan. During the preparations, I also had many opportunities to interact with Marcus, Jessica's future husband, and his family. Marcus was a charming, well-educated man who seemed to genuinely love Jessica. He looked at her with adoration, always showing her care and attention. His family were also kind, respectable people. They treated me very well, always thanking me for helping Jessica. Seeing all this, I sometimes felt a fleeting pang of guilt. Marcus and his family were completely innocent. They didn't deserve the humiliation that was about to unfold. They were also victims of Jessica's lies. But then, when the image of Kevin and Jessica in that video surfaced in my mind, that flicker of compassion was instantly extinguished. I told myself I wasn't the one causing this pain. The one causing it was Jessica. She chose the path of deceit, so she had to accept the consequences. The truth, no matter how harsh, needed to be exposed. It was better for Marcus to hurt once than to live a lifetime of deceit with a worthless wife. And then there was Kevin. He also had to play a part in this drama. As the husband of the maid of honor, he often had to accompany me to meetings and dress fittings. He had to witness his lover's happiness with another man, had to listen to the praises and blessings people showered upon them. I could clearly see the torment and jealousy in his eyes, no matter how hard he tried to hide it. Once, after a dress fitting, when it was just the two of us in the car, he couldn't hold it in any longer and asked, "Do you think she's really happy?" His voice was laced with bitterness. I turned to look at him, feigning innocence. Of course. Marcus is a good man. He's wealthy, and he loves her so much. Why wouldn't she be happy? I think they make a beautiful couple. Don't you think so? My reply was like a knife twisting in his heart. He fell silent, gripping the steering wheel, his face darkening. I rejoiced inwardly. This is just the beginning, Kevin. The pain you're feeling now is nothing compared to what I've been through. As the wedding day approached, my performance became even more perfect. I appeared to be a flawless best friend, a dedicated maid of honor, a tolerant wife without a hint of suspicion. Jessica trusted me completely. She shared with me her deepest secrets, her anxieties about her upcoming married life. She had no idea that the best friend she was confiding in was the executioner, silently sharpening her blade, waiting for the day of reckoning. The closer the wedding got, the stranger my sense of calm became. Everything was arranged, all the pieces were in place. I was just waiting for one last thing, a small key that would unlock the gates of hell. I wondered if getting it would be as easy as I had planned. There were only 3 days left until the wedding. The frantic atmosphere had reached its peak. The invitations had all been sent, the wedding dress was hanging neatly in the closet, and the hotel had given its final confirmation. Everything seemed ready for a wedding of the century, a perfect ending to Jessica's fairy tale romance. But to me, all of it was just lavish decoration for a tragic stage. And for the play to proceed flawlessly, I needed something crucial: the key to the honeymoon suite. The suite, located on the top floor of the hotel with a panoramic view of the city, had been specially booked by Marcus, the groom, for their first night together. It would be the most romantic, most private place, and it would also be the most humiliating place, where all their filthy secrets would be exposed. The plan to get the key had been laid out long ago, meticulous and airtight. It required a bit of acting, a bit of finesse, and most importantly, it had to play on their psychology. I chose an afternoon when it was just me, Jessica, and Marcus sitting together at a coffee shop to finalize the last few details. I had deliberately arranged this meeting. Kevin, my husband, had an important meeting today that he couldn't miss. I didn't want him there. His presence might ruin my plan. After we had gone through the to-do list and checked everything, I pretended to have a sudden idea, turning to Jessica with sparkling eyes. "Jessie, what if we plan a surprise for the groom?" Jessica looked puzzled. "What kind of surprise?" "The honeymoon suite," I said enthusiastically. "That night, after the party ends, you two will be exhausted. Imagine walking into the room and finding it filled with candles, rose petals, and even a bottle of chilled champagne. How romantic would that be? Marcus would be so surprised and touched." My suggestion immediately made Jessica's eyes light up. She was a romantic at heart and loved grand gestures. "Oh my God, Emily, that's a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of that? But who would do it? Everyone will be so busy that day." "I'll do it," I said, puffing out my chest heroically. "I'm the maid of honor after all. After the party, I'll sneak up to the room a little early and get everything ready. I guarantee when you two get there, everything will be perfect. Consider it my special wedding gift to you both." Jessica was overjoyed and hugged me tightly. "Emily, you're truly the best friend a girl could ask for. I love you so much." She turned to Marcus, her voice coy. "Honey, what do you think of Emily's idea? It's amazing, right?" Marcus, who had been listening quietly, smiled affectionately. He looked at me with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Emily. You're so thoughtful." "I don't know what else to say. Jessica is so lucky to have a friend like you." The trap was perfectly set. Both of my targets had walked right into it without a hint of suspicion. But the most crucial part was still the key. I continued my performance. "There's just one small problem," I said, my expression slightly concerned. "To prepare everything, I'll need the room key or key card. And on that day, the front desk will definitely only give it to the bride and groom. They won't let me in since I'm not a registered guest." Marcus nodded. "You're right, that could be a bit complicated." He thought for a moment, then said, "How about this? I'll talk to the hotel manager in advance and register your name as an authorized person for the room. On the day, you just need to show your ID." This plan was okay, but it wasn't secure enough. I needed the key card in my hand to have complete control over the timing, to be able to go in and out at any time without being monitored. I shook my head. "Oh no, Marcus, that's too much trouble, and all that paperwork is such a hassle. I'd feel bad." I pretended to refuse. I paused for a moment, feigning deep thought, then suddenly had another idea. "Ah, how about this?" I said, my voice perking up. "You and Jessie can check in and get the key cards as usual. The hotel usually gives out 2 cards. You can just give me one of them in advance, and I'll hold on to it. That night, after the reception has started, I'll find a moment when no one's around to slip up to the room and get everything ready. That way, it's discreet and doesn't bother anyone. Once I'm done, I'll just leave the card in the room. You two can go up and just enjoy yourselves." My suggestion sounded incredibly reasonable and convenient. It showed I was a thoughtful person who didn't want to inconvenience others. Jessica immediately jumped on board. "Yes, honey, let's do that. It's so much easier. I'll feel safest with Emily holding the card." Marcus, a man completely lost in his happiness and with no defenses up, also agreed right away. "All right, then it's settled. I'll go to the hotel tomorrow afternoon to check in, and I'll get the card to you then." I breathed a silent sigh of relief. Everything had gone more smoothly than I could have imagined. The key card, the very essence of the honeymoon suite, would soon be in my hands. With it, I would hold the power of life and death over this entire play. We sat for a while longer, discussing a few minor details for the surprise decorations. I promised to turn the room into a paradise of love. Jessica and Marcus couldn't thank me enough. They looked at me with eyes full of trust and gratitude. They had no idea that the friend, the sister they trusted implicitly, was secretly preparing a living hell just for them. The next day, true to his word, Marcus brought the key card for the honeymoon suite to me. He handed it to me carefully, with a reminder. "We're counting on you, Emily." I smiled and took it. You can count on me. Holding the cold plastic card in my hand, I could feel its weight. This was not just a piece of plastic, it was the key that would open the door to the truth, the ticket that would bring two traitors to the court of conscience and honor. I knew the night before the wedding would be a sleepless one. The most romantic room in the city was waiting for me, not for rest, but to set the final stage. A stage where the light of truth would incinerate all the darkness of lies. The night before the wedding. In just one more night, Jessica would walk down the aisle. The entire city seemed to be going to bed early, saving its energy for an eventful weekend. But for me, this was a sleepless night, a night of action. Around 11 p.m., after Kevin had fallen into a deep sleep, exhausted from a day of playing the dutiful husband chauffeuring his wife around for her best friend, I slipped quietly out of bed. I changed into a set of discreet black clothes and pulled a baseball cap down low, covering most of my face. I didn't want anyone to recognize me. I drove to the hotel where the wedding would take place. The car carrying my 3 works of art had already been brought by Tom, my assistant, and parked in the staff parking lot, a discreet arrangement I had made beforehand. I entered the hotel through a side entrance, avoiding the bustling main lobby. The key card in my hand allowed me to easily pass through security doors and get into the VIP elevator. Ding! The elevator stopped at the top floor. The hallway, with its plush red carpet, was so quiet I could hear my own footsteps. I found the presidential suite. My heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from a morbid excitement. It was time. I swiped the keycard. The heavy door opened silently, releasing a cool breeze and the faint, sweet scent of lilies. I stepped inside. A space of lavish luxury opened up before me. The suite was designed in a neoclassical style, with a dominant color scheme of white and gold. A king-sized bed was draped in pristine white silk sheets. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling like stars. From the balcony, the entire glittering, magical nightscape of the city was laid out below. It was a perfect setting for a romantic honeymoon night, a paradise of love. But tonight, I would turn it into a hell of truth. I carefully brought the 3 large, carefully wrapped canvases into the room. I set them on the floor and began my work as a set designer, an artist of revenge. My first target was the bed, the centerpiece of the room. I unwrapped the first canvas, the close-up of Jessica's leering face. I didn't hang it on the wall. That would be too ordinary. I laid it flat on the bed, right in the middle, exactly where the bride and groom were supposed to lie. I even carefully sprinkled some red rose petals I had brought around it, creating a grotesque contrast between romance and shamelessness. I imagined the scene. Jessica and Marcus, giddy with happiness, walking into the room and seeing the bride's face invitingly displayed on their honeymoon bed, but not for the groom, for another man. It would surely be an unforgettable shock. Next, I moved to the bathroom. An even more luxurious space, with a jacuzzi tub, gold-plated fixtures, and a massive mirror covering almost an entire wall. This would be the place for the second painting, the one with the anchor tattoo. I used special adhesive hooks to hang the canvas right in the middle of the wall opposite the mirror. Anyone walking into the bathroom, the first image they would see in the mirror would not be their own reflection, but the bare back of Kevin and the tattoo of betrayal. I even carefully placed 2 glasses of champagne on the edge of the tub, as if they had just been enjoying a relaxing moment there together. This arrangement was not just an accusation, it was a humiliation, turning the most private space into a crime scene. And finally, the cruelest picture, the one with the best friends forever ring. I had a special place for it. I looked around the room, searching for a spot they couldn't possibly miss. And then I saw it. The vanity table with its classic oval mirror, the very place where, the next morning, Jessica would sit to do her makeup, to admire her beauty as a new bride. I didn't hang the picture. I removed the mirror from the wall and used industrial-strength adhesive to glue the canvas directly in its place. Now, whenever she looked at the vanity, instead of her own reflection, Jessica would only see the image of herself embracing her best friend's husband, the friendship ring glittering on her hand. Every time she wanted to look in the mirror, she would have to confront her own betrayal. It would be a lingering mental torture, a permanent reminder of an unforgivable sin. The setup took nearly 2 hours. I did everything meticulously, as carefully as an artist completing their life's masterpiece. When everything was done, I took a step back to admire my creation. The magnificent honeymoon suite had been transformed into a contemporary art gallery, an exhibition titled Betrayal. The space was still luxurious, but it now exuded a macabre, chilling aura. The sweet scent of lilies now seemed tainted with the smell of lies. I smiled, a smile of satisfaction. My gift was ready. It had no bow, no card, but it contained all of my hatred and contempt. I cleaned up everything, erased all traces of my presence, and quietly left the room. Before leaving, I carefully placed the keycard back on the small table by the door. Just as I had promised, I had fulfilled my role as a good friend. I drove home, feeling strangely serene. Tonight, I would sleep soundly, because I knew that from tomorrow on, others would be the ones living through long, sleepless nights of torment and humiliation. The biggest party was just a few hours away, and I wondered, would our bride be strong enough to enjoy this surprise gift? The big day finally arrived. The sky was a brilliant blue without a single cloud, as if nature itself was celebrating the couple's happiness. The atmosphere was bustling from early morning. As the maid of honor, I was at Jessica's house before sunrise. I wore a gentle pastel pink dress, my makeup fresh, a radiant smile constantly on my face. No one could have guessed that behind that smile was a heart as cold as ice and a cruel plan waiting to be executed. Jessica looked stunning today in her pristine white wedding gown. The makeup artist had transformed her into a true princess. She was nervous, anxious, and chattering non-stop. "Emily, is my hair okay? Is my makeup too thick? I'm so nervous. My heart is pounding out of my chest." She gripped my hand tightly, her palm damp with sweat. I squeezed her hand gently, my voice reassuring. "You look beautiful, Jessie. You're the most beautiful bride in the world today. Just relax, I've got everything under control." My words seemed to work. Jessica let out a sigh of relief, her eyes looking at me with complete trust. She had no idea that the best friend she was leaning on was the very person preparing to push her off a cliff. The groom's motorcade arrived amidst fireworks and cheers. Marcus stepped out of a luxurious Rolls-Royce, looking dapper in a white suit. He looked at Jessica with adoration. It was a romantic, touching scene. If I didn't know the truth, I might have shed a tear for their happiness. The ceremonies proceeded solemnly. I stood right beside Jessica, helping her lift her train, adjust her veil, and exchange rings. I played the part of the perfect maid of honor, flawlessly. Kevin's eyes, my husband's, occasionally darted towards the stage. He sat in the guest section, next to my parents. I could see the forced and awkward expression on his face. He had to clap, to smile, to wish his lover well as she married another man. What pain could be greater than that? That was the first punishment I had for him. The reception took place in a lavish and lively atmosphere. The guests were all prominent figures in the business world. People raised their glasses, toasted the couple, and praised the wedding of the century and the beautiful couple. Jessica and Marcus went from table to table, thanking their guests. The smiles of happiness never left their faces. They were like the main characters in a fairy tale, savoring every moment of their glory. They had no idea that the fairy tale was about to end. As the party was winding down and guests began to leave, I knew the decisive moment was near. I found the bride and groom, who were seeing guests off in the main hall. "Marcus, Jessie, you two must be exhausted," I said with a concerned tone. "Why don't you let me and the staff handle the rest here? You two should go up to the room and rest. You have a long night ahead of you." I winked playfully. Jessica blushed, nestling shyly against Marcus. He, on the other hand, beamed with joy, looking at me with grateful eyes. "Thank you so much, Emily. You've worked so hard today." "It's nothing. You two go on up. Oh, and I prepared a little surprise gift for you in the room." "I hope you'll like it," I said sweetly. My words made them even more eager. They couldn't wait any longer, quickly saying goodbye to the last few guests and walking hand in hand towards the elevator. I stood there, watching their retreating figures, a cold sensation running down my spine. The bomb was about to explode. Just then, Kevin walked up to me. He had had quite a bit to drink. He reeked of alcohol. "Are you happy?" he asked, his voice full of sarcasm. "Seeing her get married?" "Of course I am," I replied nonchalantly. "My best friend found happiness. Why wouldn't I be happy? Aren't you happy for her? You two were close colleagues, after all." My words were like a knife twisting his wound. He was speechless, just glaring at me before storming off in a huff. I paid him no mind. All my attention was now focused on that suite on the top floor. I looked at my watch. It was time. I wanted to witness the curtain fall with my own eyes, but I couldn't go up there. I needed someone to be my witness, someone who would recount every detail to me vividly. I immediately thought of Tom, my assistant, whom I had planted among the hotel's service staff for this special mission. I sent him a short text message. "It's time. Report the situation." A few minutes later, Tom replied, "Roger that, boss." I stood in a secluded corner of the banquet hall, holding a glass of wine, pretending to admire the view outside, but my heart was pounding in anticipation. I knew that in just a few moments, a scream would erupt from the top floor of this hotel. A scream that would tear through the night, tear apart all the lies, and herald the beginning of a storm with no end. I smiled, raised my glass, and toasted myself. This was a toast to the end of a friendship, a marriage, and also a toast to my own rebirth. The final moment of peace before the storm is always the most terrifyingly quiet. I stood there, in the secluded corner of the nearly empty banquet hall, the red wine in my glass swirling as the crystal chandeliers cast glittering patterns on the marble floor. Outside, the city was lit up, a dazzling and magical sea of light, a beautiful, romantic scene. But in my ears, an invisible clock was ticking down. Tick, tock. With every passing second, the bomb I had so carefully planted moved closer to detonation. I couldn't help but think of them, Jessica and Marcus. By now, they must have stepped out of the elevator. They were walking hand in hand down the red-carpeted hallway. They were talking and laughing, whispering sweet nothings, dreaming of a passionate wedding night. The smiles on their faces must be so radiant, so happy. They had no idea that behind that door was not a paradise of love, but a living hell. I took a sip of wine. Its slightly bitter taste spread through my mouth, helping me stay sharp. I didn't feel nervous, nor did I feel triumphant. My heart was strangely still. I just felt like a spectator in the front row, waiting for the climax of a play I had directed myself. And then I remembered hugging Jessica just before she and the groom headed up. I had leaned in close to her ear, whispering in a voice only the two of us could hear, a voice as sweet as honey but as cold as ice. "May you have 100 years of happiness, Jessie. I hope you like the gift I prepared for you in the room." I felt her body stiffen for a second at my suggestive words, but she quickly dismissed it, probably thinking it was just a normal blessing. She smiled, thanked me, and turned to take the groom's arm, stepping into the elevator with a smile still on her lips. It was the last happy smile I would ever see on her face. The elevator doors closed, carrying the two main characters of the night towards their destiny. I watched the numbers on the elevator display climb, 10, 15, 20, finally stopping at 35. They had arrived. I wondered, how many seconds until the scream? The entire universe seemed to hold its breath in that moment. I stood motionless, all my senses on high alert. I listened, waiting for a sound, a signal, a scream that would tear apart the night and this facade of lies. But no, there was no scream. At least, not one I could hear from this distance. The prolonged silence started to make me anxious. Had something gone wrong? Did they not go to the room? Or had they discovered something? A flood of questions raced through my mind. I gripped the wine glass tighter, trying to stay calm. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Tom. I quickly opened it. The message was short, but it was enough to make my heart stop. "Boss, they're in the room." But there was no scream, just a terrifying silence. Silence. More terrifying than a scream. What did it mean? Was the shock so great that they were rendered speechless, or was something even more horrific happening up there? I texted Tom back. "What's happening? Report in detail." A few seconds later, Tom called me directly. He had moved to a hidden corner, his voice a panicked whisper. "Boss, I don't even know how to describe it." The door to the suite wasn't fully closed, just ajar. I peeked inside for a second. I saw the bride, Jessica, sitting on the floor right in front of the first painting. She wasn't crying, not screaming, just sitting there, motionless like a statue. And the groom, Marcus, he was standing in the middle of the room, also silent. He looked at each painting, one by one, from the one on the bed to the one in the bathroom, then the one on the vanity. His face, boss, I have never seen such a terrifying expression on anyone. It wasn't anger, not sadness. It was just emptiness, a chilling, dead silence. Listening to Tom, I could picture the entire scene. That silence, it had a destructive power far greater than any argument or scream. It was a collapse from within, the shattering of an entire world. And then Tom continued, his voice trembling even more. And then the groom. He started to laugh. Boss! It wasn't a loud laugh, just a twisted, chilling smirk. He slowly walked over to where the bride was sitting and knelt in front of her. He didn't say a word. He just raised his hand and gently, so gently, slipped the wedding ring off her finger. Then he stood up, walked to the balcony door, and threw the ring out into the night. I heard a tiny click as it hit the railing and disappeared. After that, he turned back, went to the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing his things, still in absolute silence. A deadly, silent play. Marcus, the polite, gentle man, hadn't flown into a rage, hadn't smashed anything. He had chosen the cruelest punishment, indifference and contempt. His actions were more painful than 1,000 slaps, 1,000,000 curses. It showed that to him, Jessica was now nothing, just a piece of filth to be discarded. What happened after that? I asked, my voice hoarse. After that, he pulled his suitcase out of the room without a single glance back at his new wife. He walked right past me. I saw his eyes were bloodshot, but there wasn't a single tear. He went straight to the elevator and left. The door to the honeymoon suite was still open, with only the bride sitting alone inside, surrounded by the paintings of her betrayal. I didn't dare stay there any longer, boss. It was too scary, Tom said, his voice still shaking. I hung up, my mind a chaotic mess. This outcome was beyond my imagination. I had expected a fiery argument, a dramatic confrontation, but no, just silence and a cold, swift end. I didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Happy that my plan had succeeded perfectly, sad at its sheer cruelty. I stood there, lost in thought, until a familiar voice from behind pulled me back to reality. What are you doing here all alone? It was Kevin. He had found me. His face was perplexed. He probably sensed something was wrong. Why haven't the bride and groom come down to say goodbye to the guests? I've been looking for them everywhere, he asked. I turned to look at him, my expression devoid of emotion. They went up to the honeymoon suite. They went up? Why haven't they come back down? Perhaps they're busy enjoying the surprise gift I prepared for them, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Kevin frowned. He was starting to feel that something wasn't right. What gift? What did you prepare for them? A very special gift. A private art exhibition. Would you like to go up and see it? I asked, a cold smile playing on my lips. Just then, a few screams started to come from the hallway of the 35th floor. It was the housekeeping staff. They had discovered the scene in the honeymoon suite. Their screams acted as a spark, quickly drawing the attention of security and the few remaining guests. Chaos began to spread. Kevin heard the screams, his face paling. "What's going on up there?" he asked me, his eyes wide with confusion. I didn't answer. I just shrugged and walked leisurely towards the elevator. "Let me go up and check for you. After all, I am the bride's best friend," I said, then stepped into the elevator, leaving Kevin standing there, bewildered. The doors closed. I knew the second act, the play between him and me, was about to begin, and this time I wouldn't be acting alone. The elevator doors slowly closed, shutting me off from the chaotic world below. Inside the confined space, I could see my reflection in the gold-plated mirror. A woman in an elegant evening gown, her face placid to the point of being chilling. No one could have guessed that just moments ago, this woman had ignited an explosion of devastating force. The elevator ascended to the 35th floor. As the doors opened, a scene even more chaotic than I had imagined greeted me. The hallway was packed with people, from hotel staff and security to the groom's family, who had been notified and had rushed up. Everyone was gathered in front of the honeymoon suite's door, whispering and murmuring. The door was open, but no one dared to step inside, as if it were the scene of a murder. I saw Marcus's parents standing there, their faces ashen with shock, completely bewildered. I pushed through the crowd and stepped forward. All eyes immediately turned to me. "Emily, what's happening?" Marcus's mother, a kind-faced woman, rushed to grab my hand, her voice filled with anxiety. "Where's Jessica? Where did Marcus go? Why is the room?" She couldn't finish her sentence, just pointing inside with a horrified expression. I looked into the room. The scene was just as Tom had described, except now Jessica was no longer sitting motionless. She was on her knees, frantically tearing the canvases to shreds, sobbing hysterically. She looked like a madwoman, hair disheveled, makeup streaked with tears. It was a pathetic sight, but I felt not an ounce of pity. This was the price she had to pay. I turned to Marcus's mother, feigning shock. I don't know, ma'am. I just got here. What are these pictures? Who is the man in them?" My innocent question was like a dagger twisting deeper into their family's pain and humiliation. They didn't know who the man was, and that was the cruelest part. They only knew that their daughter-in-law, on her wedding night, had been exposed in an undeniable affair. Just then, Kevin arrived, panting, his face pale. He pushed through the crowd, saw the scene in the room, and then saw me standing there. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I knew he understood everything. He wasn't stupid. He recognized the anchor tattoo. He recognized his own familiar back. He understood that this art exhibition was my doing. "Emily," he whispered, his voice barely audible, his eyes filled with panic and disbelief. He started to walk towards me but was blocked by the people around him. The chaos peaked when Marcus suddenly returned. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by 2 large bodyguards and a man in a suit who looked like a lawyer. His face was no longer numb. It was replaced by a frighteningly cold and decisive expression. He didn't spare Jessica a single glance. He walked straight to his parents. "Mom, Dad, let's go home. There's nothing left to see here," he said firmly. Then he turned to the lawyer. "I'm leaving all the divorce and annulment procedures to you. I want this resolved as quickly as possible. I don't want to see this woman ever again." Hearing this, Jessica looked as if she'd been electrocuted. She stopped crying and looked up at Marcus, her eyes pleading. "Marcus, please, please let me explain. It's not what you think. I was framed." Marcus turned back, looking directly at her for the first time since he returned. He let out a cold, cynical laugh. "Framed? Look at these pictures and explain them. Or do you want me to invite the man in the pictures here so we can have a little chat, all 3 of us?" His words left Jessica speechless. She knew any explanation was futile. She had lost spectacularly. Marcus said no more, turning to leave with his family. Before he left, he ordered the 2 bodyguards, "Don't let her leave this room until my lawyer arrives." The 2 bodyguards stood guard at the door, their arms crossed, blocking any escape. She was trapped in her own honeymoon suite, with her shame and her sin. As the groom's family departed, the crowd began to disperse. Soon it was just me, Kevin, and a few bewildered hotel employees left. With no one around, nothing left to hide, the final confrontation between him and me had arrived. Kevin slowly approached me, his eyes bloodshot and filled with rage. "Was it you?" he hissed through gritted teeth. "Did you plan all of this?" I looked him straight in the eye, without a trace of fear. I smiled, a smile of admission. "Yes, it was me. Are you surprised?" My answer was the spark that ignited the fury he had been suppressing. He roared like a wounded animal, raising his hand to slap me. "Why? Why would you do this?" But I was no longer the Emily of the past. I didn't flinch. I held my head high, my voice like steel. "Why? You dare ask me why? You should ask yourself, Kevin. What did you and my best friend do behind my back? How did you trample on my love and my trust?" I pulled out my phone and opened the folder with the evidence Henderson had collected. "You think I only knew about the affair? You're wrong. I know everything about how you and her colluded with her cousin, setting up a shell company to embezzle money from my family. Every single dollar. I held the phone screen in front of his face. The numbers, the contracts, the pictures of the three of them celebrating their spoils. Each piece of evidence was like a hammer blow to his head. Kevin's face went from red to deathly white. He stumbled backward, his mouth agape, unable to utter a word. He was completely cornered, with no way out. The play had truly reached its final curtain call. Silence enveloped the space, broken only by Kevin's ragged breathing and Jessica's desperate sobs echoing from the room. Kevin looked at me, his eyes no longer angry, just filled with sheer panic and utter defeat. He had underestimated me. He thought I was just a naive, sheltered girl, easily fooled. He never imagined that beneath that gentle exterior was a will of iron and a calculating mind that rivaled my father's. He had lost on all fronts. "What do you want?" he finally managed to say, his voice a hoarse whisper of despair. He knew the power of life and death was now entirely in my hands. I looked at him, the man who was once my entire world, now so pathetic and pitiful. But I felt no sympathy. "What do I want?" I laughed dryly. "I want everything back that you two stole from me. My honor, my money, and my peace." I continued, my voice cold and final. "Tomorrow, my lawyer will send you the divorce papers. You have two choices. 1, you sign the papers, agree to leave with nothing, and pay back every cent you embezzled. I will consider that compensation for the pain you've caused, and I won't press criminal charges. 2, if you refuse, all of this evidence goes to the police and to my father. Then, you won't just lose everything, you'll be facing prison time. You can choose." My words were a death sentence. Kevin slumped to the floor, burying his head in his hands. He had no strength left to fight. He knew both paths led to a dead end. He had destroyed it all with his own hands, his career, his family, and his future. I said nothing more and turned to leave. I didn't want to waste another second in this filthy place. As I walked past the honeymoon suite, I heard Jessica cry out my name in desperation. "Emily! Emily, please, help me! You're my best friend!" I paused for a second, without turning back, and let out one final, cold sentence. Our friendship died in the 27 seconds of that video. And with that, I walked away, never looking back. The days that followed were a cascade of irreversible collapses. Just as I had said, my lawyer dealt with Kevin. Faced with irrefutable evidence and the threat of legal action, he had no choice but to accept all my terms. He signed the divorce papers, agreeing to leave without any assets. The house, the car, everything jointly owned, became mine. He also had to sign a commitment to repay the embezzled funds within a specified time. He was fired from my family's company, losing his directorship, losing everything. From a successful man, he became a penniless nobody, burdened with enormous debt and a stain on his name that could never be washed away. Jessica's fate was even more tragic. After that horrific night, she was sued by Marcus's family, who demanded full reimbursement for the wedding costs and damages for defamation. The scandal of a pre-wedding affair involving the son of a major corporation became sensational news, spreading across newspapers and social media. Her true face was exposed. People called her the most shameless bride of the year, a professional gold digger. The company where she worked immediately fired her. She lost everything: her fiancé, her reputation, her career. Her family back home, after learning of the scandal, disowned her out of shame. She had to sell her luxury condo, a gift of betrayal, to pay compensation to the Vance family and to survive. From the pinnacle of prestige and happiness, she fell to the very bottom of society, living in contempt and scorn. Her cousin's company, K&J Interiors, did not escape its fate. Once the illegal business dealings were exposed, the company was boycotted by other partners and quickly went bankrupt. The cousin also faced lawsuits and mounting debt. The entire network of lies and greed had crumbled, taking everyone involved down with it. I stood outside the storm, a silent observer. I felt no satisfaction, no joy. Inside me, there was only a cold emptiness. I had won, but it was a bitter victory. I had paid too high a price. I had lost a husband, a best friend, and the youthful years I had spent believing so blindly. I decided I needed a change. I asked my father for an extended leave of absence. I wanted to leave this city, this place filled with too many painful memories. I wanted to go somewhere far away, where no one knew who I was, so my soul could heal, so I could start over. My parents, after learning the whole truth, no longer blamed me. They were just silent, their eyes filled with sorrow and regret. They understood that their arranged match, however well-intentioned, could not bring me happiness. They agreed to let me go, only asking me to take care of myself and to always remember that our family would forever be a safe harbor for my return. I packed my bags, taking only the essentials. I sold the house, the car, anything that could remind me of the past. I wanted to shed it all. Before I left, I visited my little daughter, Lily, one last time. She was sleeping soundly in her crib, her little lips pursed adorably. I kissed her forehead gently, tears streaming down my face. "Mommy's sorry, sweetie. Mommy needs some time to become stronger. I promise I'll be back soon." I left in the early morning, without a single goodbye. I only left a letter for my parents. The plane took off, carrying me away from New York, away from my past. Watching the city shrink below, my heart was a tangle of emotions. I didn't know where the future would lead. I only knew that I had to live a new life, a life that I was in control of. The play was over. The actors had met their respective ends. All that was left was me, the director, embarking on a new journey, a journey to find myself again. 1 year later, a small town in Vermont greeted me with a cool morning and a magical veil of mist. I stood on the balcony of my small wooden cabin nestled on a hillside, cupping a warm mug of ginger tea, taking a deep breath of the crisp air filled with the scent of flowers and pine. For the past year, I had lived here, a life completely different from before. I was no longer a busy executive, no longer a wife drowning in sorrow. I was just Emily, the owner of a small, charming tea and flower shop on a street corner. Life here was slow and peaceful. Every morning, I woke up early to tend to the roses and daisies I grew myself. Then I would open the shop, brew fragrant teas, arrange fresh flowers, and wait for customers to stop by. The work didn't bring me much money, but it brought me serenity, a simple joy I hadn't felt in a very long time. I had learned to love myself, to find happiness in the smallest things. The wound in my heart had gradually healed. I no longer felt resentment or pain. The past had become a lesson, an old chapter in a book that I had closed and put away in a corner of my soul. I sometimes heard news of the old crowd through my parents when I called home. Kevin, after the divorce and losing everything, could not get back on his feet. He drowned himself in alcohol, living an aimless, bleak existence. Someone said they saw him working as a security guard for a small company, looking haggard and having aged a decade. Jessica, after the shocking scandal, had completely vanished from New York. Rumor had it she went back to her hometown, living a reclusive life, too ashamed to face anyone. Her dream of a luxurious life and a fairy tale wedding had turned to dust, leaving only humiliation and belated regret. They had paid a steep price for their betrayal and greed. I listened to these stories with an undisturbed heart. Their lives no longer had anything to do with me. Everyone must be responsible for their own choices. Today was a special day, the first anniversary of my freedom. I decided to close the shop early. I rode my old scooter along the winding road that hugged a serene lake. The evening breeze was gentle, carrying the characteristic chill of the mountains. I stopped at a pine-covered hill with a panoramic view of the misty town. I sat on a rock, quietly watching the sunset. The sun slowly dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. It was a beautiful, peaceful scene. I closed my eyes, feeling the stillness in my soul. I had found true peace, not in some distant land, but right within myself. When you learn to let go, to forgive, your heart naturally finds tranquility. Just then, my phone rang. It was my dad. "Hi, sweetie, what are you up to?" My father's voice, as warm as ever, came through the phone. "Just taking a little walk, Dad. Is everything okay at home?" "Everything's fine, dear." "Oh, there's something I wanted to tell you." My dad's voice hesitated slightly. "Kevin came by the house yesterday. He didn't come in, just stood at the gate for a long time. Then he gave the security guard a letter to give to you. My heart skipped a beat. Did you read it? No. It's your letter. I wouldn't dare. Do you want me to mail it to you? I was silent for a moment. The past I thought was buried was being stirred up again. No, that's okay, Dad, I said calmly. If it's not important, you can just throw it away for me. All right, sweetie. My dad didn't press further. Oh, and little Lily is doing great. She keeps asking when Mommy Emily is coming home. You should arrange your work and come visit. Your mother, your daughter, and I all miss you very much. I know, Dad. I'll probably come back at the end of the month. After hanging up, I sat there quietly for a while. I knew it was time for me to go back. I couldn't run away forever. I was strong enough to face everything now. And most importantly, I missed my daughter. I missed my family. A few weeks later, I returned to New York. The city was as noisy and bustling as ever, but my heart was different. I stepped out of the airport, no longer feeling suffocated, only a sense of peace. My parents and Lily were waiting. The moment she saw me, Lily shrieked with joy and ran into my arms. Mommy, I missed you so much. I hugged her tightly, inhaling her familiar scent. Tears of happiness streamed down my cheeks. I missed you too, my sweet girl. My parents looked at me, their eyes no longer filled with worry, only joy and pride. Their daughter had returned, stronger and more mature. That evening, while cleaning up my old room, I found the letter from Kevin. My father hadn't thrown it away. Curious, I opened it. The handwriting was messy, smudged in a few places. Emily, by the time you read this, I'll probably be gone from New York. I've decided to go back to my hometown and start over. This past year, I've lived in torment and regret. I lost everything, and I know it's the price I had to pay. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for teaching me an expensive lesson, for showing me the difference between right and wrong. And thank you for not sending me to prison, for giving me a chance to start again. I wish you and Lily all the happiness. Goodbye. I folded the letter, feeling no ripple in my heart. All the resentment and hatred seemed to have vanished with those words. I walked to the window, tore the letter into small pieces, and let the scraps fly out into the wind, dissolving into the night. The past was truly behind me. I looked up at the sky. A crescent moon hung there, casting a gentle, soft light. My new life, a life filled with only love and peace, was just beginning.